Episode 4, The Rundown, July 5th. We're talking wide receivers today, Kyle. We're going to get right into it. But before we get into it,
All right.
what did you do on July 4th, bro?
July 4th, pretty boring for me. I actually moved.
Oh.
So I've been living in Ashburn past couple months. 10-minute commute, can't beat that. But I'm moving to Tyson's Corner.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was pretty boring and going to spend the weekend maybe just hanging out by the pool, getting used to that.
So you basically got your workout in for the entire weekend.
Exactly. So, now I can enjoy the weekend, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So maybe enjoy the heat. Get ready, get prepared for that Richmond sun.
Do you tan or do you turn red?
I used to turn red.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened. Something switched around high school, and now I actually get tan. So,
Nice.
But it's like I need to be dedicated to it because I am very pale. And if I don't have a consistent routine getting out to the sun, it's not going to look great. How about you, man? What do you got? It's more exciting than me.
I went to Chicago. Hung out with some family, just chilled out. I don't lay out much, but I like to just get out, get on the jet skis if I can, if I get out in some water. So we just on Lake Michigan a little bit, and we just chilled out, man. I mean, it wasn't nothing too crazy, nothing too special, but I'm glad to be back. Glad to work off some of these hot dogs and hamburgers, and hopefully you won't hear it in my voice today.
Oh, we'll see.
Another person who's on our crew, Stevie.
The third part of our squad.
Stevie, what did you do?
Nothing too crazy. Just went to a friend's house, had some barbecue food, did some fireworks, kept it low key. It was a pretty good July 4th though.
You talk about barbecue. There's only one right way to do barbecue. So I got to ask you, how was your barbecue made?
On the grill?
Oh,
what do you mean?
With vinegar. From North Carolina, every barbecue has to be vinegar based.
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what Gabe's talking about.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kyle.
I'm biased.
I'm okay with the grill, but I'm
North
also
Carolina.
I'm also an
Never heard that.
East Coast guy, so I don't know.
All right, well, let's get into these receivers. Starting off with Josh Doctson.
All right.
Of course, we all know the team didn't exercise his fifth option. However, he said, it's going to be a big year for him. Mm-hmm. However, with the team not exercising his fifth option, he's not using that as motivation, because if you use something as motivation, that means you're overworking yourself and you're looking, you're thinking too deeply about it. So he said what he's going to do is just play his game, let the stats show, let the numbers show. I mean, the guy has a solid point. I mean, a lot of, fans are basically saying hey, this guy isn't doing this. Josh isn't doing this. He's not doing that. But in Josh's defense, I mean, he's played with 6, 7 quarterbacks in the 3 years he's been here. So it's tough.
4 last year alone.
Exactly. So it's tough to actually gain a rhythm with the guy if you don't know who the quarterback's going to be. So I'm interested to see, what this season's going to be like for him, because I mean we got some pretty solid quarterbacks. Whoever the quarterback may be, I feel like it will be a good year. Just having some consistency, getting on the same page. We saw Josh Doctson this past OTAs and minicamp. Staying after practice. Working with every single quarterback. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I mean Gruden said because they asked, obviously the media asked Gruden about Doctson and not using the 5th-year option and all that, and he was like, I'm Josh's biggest supporter. He really impressed him at OTAs and minicamp. I said he was making plays left and right.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, like you said, he's played with a ton of quarterbacks over his career.
Yeah.
First year, he had the Achilles injury, so he didn't do much. His sophomore year, he showed flashes of that first-round potential and what he could be. But then this past year, he wasn't able to put it all together. So, I mean, he's a guy that, he says he's not thinking about the 5th-year option and all that. But there's other factors like competition. They brought in 2 rookie wide receivers that people are very high on. And just knowing that, he's going to be a free agent next year and having a big year, productive year this year is only going to help his cause.
Yeah.
So that's going to be one of the developments as we go throughout the season is, can Doctson take that step and be one of those go-to receivers, especially without Jamison Crowder.
Right.
So it's they're really looking for who's going to be the go-to guy.
That next receiver.
Exactly. And there's a lot of options. So
he has the size, he has the frame. I mean, he has all the tools to, be that guy on the outside, one-on-one matchup. Hey, you got 3 receivers on one side and it's Josh Johnson backside, one-on-one. I mean, he can be that receiver. Now it's just, like you said, just a matter of fact of just showing it.
Exactly.
And I think this upcoming year, my X factor in this receiver group is the next person up on our list, Paul Richardson.
Dude, that was my guy too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think he can be special. I mean, we all look to 2017, that year when he had his breakout season in his contract year in Seattle, and putting up over 700 receiving yards. Just what he did for that team. There were so many high expectations from that year, and then last year, I mean, we saw some flashes. The Arizona game. He had the touchdown against the Packers this past year. So we see those flashes. And, I mean, even last year, he was, the fastest receiver we had on the roster. We've ramped up speed this year with some of the new guys, but he can be that downfield guy that you need. And, I mean, we know, Josh Doctson, it's a lot of questions, with contract and everything. One thing we do know about Paul Richardson, there's 4 years left in his contract.
Yeah.
So
he's
he's
getting
going to
started.
be exactly.
He's just getting started. And I think the biggest thing with Richardson was the health. I mean, so our writer, or I guess former writer, Jake Krink-Schreifels, he wrote a great story in April about documenting Paul Richardson's recovery and what he was dealing with during the season.
Yeah.
And so he was really dealing with this pain in his shoulder, which required shoulder surgery eventually, but he was dealing with that last training camp.
Yeah.
So he was making a couple diving plays, or just 3 straight plays he landed on that same shoulder, and it wasn't the same since. And he really felt bad that he was hurt, and coaches and the trainers, it was a balance of how much do you want to practice during the week,
right,
and then so you can be your best on Sundays. And it was just, he really struggled with that, because he figured if I'm going to be out on the field on Sundays, I can't have my backup outwork me during the week, and then he has to watch me on Sundays.
Right.
So he's just that kind of guy that if he's going to be out there on Sundays, he wants to be out there through the whole week.
100%, yeah.
So he was battling with that all year, and it just weared on him every single game.
It was his labrum, right? Correct?
I think so.
I know it's the
clavicle.
Yeah,
it was a clavicle.
So that sucks.
And that's just something that kept getting worse and worse, and then eventually they had to shut him down. And it was frustrating, but I think once they shut him down and put him on IR, he realized, okay, this is for the better. This is so I can get back to where I need to be by 2019. And so, I mean, OTAs, he wasn't a full participant, but you did see him out there. It was nice to see him out there with the. He was in uniform towards the end.
Yeah, he worked out a little. He was there during mini camp. So
you're right.
He participated in all the mini camps.
Yeah, so he wasn't here during OTAs.
It was good to see him. It was good to see him out there. I mean, still looks in good spirits. I mean, even in the locker room, he's still cracking jokes, doing what he does. So it's always good to have that veteran guy, that veteran leadership, and like you said, a guy that wants to be out there in the field, a guy that wants to practice so he can be better on Sundays. I mean, that's what you need.
And a guy who, when healthy, can be a huge threat.
He's
a huge down through.
Yep.
I mean, you got the speed. You just take the top off the defense. It's just him playing well will just open so much more up. So, Redskins fan might have been like, "Oh, Paul Richardson struggled last year," but then you realize what he was dealing with on a game-to-game basis, and maybe you can understand a little more why. So,
right. It's just like you said. I mean, it's just so tough to analyze these receivers right now because the quarterback situation that happened last year. So you really can't.
Yeah.
It's just tough. I mean, right now we're talking about skills and positional and attributes that they bring. And another guy I think brings a lot of skill and attributes to the table is Trey Quinn. I know you got a lot on him, so I'll let you start this off.
Yeah. So I don't know. So since the end of last season, I don't know if anyone's gotten more hype than Trey Quinn. I mean, so obviously we drafted Dwayne Haskins. He had a ton of hype, Montez Sweat. But even from when free agency started. So I remember when Jamison Crowder got signed with the Jets, and then Gruden was talking at the owners' meetings, and he was like, losing Crowder hurts quite a bit, but I'm ready to watch Trey Quinn jump into the slot and dominate the position. This was in February. So that's kind of what started off, and then he's continued to say, he's got that position locked down. Case Keenum said at minicamp, he's like, he has the potential, or he's going to be a special player. And then wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard, I actually asked him, I'm like, hey, what do you think about all the chatter surrounding Trey Quinn? What do you think he can do?
Mm-hmm.
And so he looked at me, and I swear he stared into my soul. I was like, he's like, it's more than chatter, man. Like he's a good football player. Like it didn't matter that he was Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the 2018 draft.
Mm-hmm.
He is the real deal, and he's going to show people this year what the coaches and his teammates have been seeing in practice.
Right.
So, I mean, he's a guy that he has all the hype, and they are higher on him than a lot of other guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what do you think of him?
I think he's a phenomenal player. One thing that stood out to me about Trey is that even though he is has a huge character, huge personality, when it comes to football, when it comes to the X's and O's, he's ready to work. He's ready to put in the work, put in the hours. And one thing that he said in the interview, he was basically saying, last year I learned a lot about myself. He said I knew I was good in football. He said, but I've never been hurt in my life. Mm-hmm. So he said the fact that I'm joking around playing, and then in an instant, it's all taken away from me.
Yep.
He said that's when he realized, hey, like, I'm not a rookie anymore. Yeah. Like, I have to figure this out. So we've seen flashes. We've seen, plays from Quinn, the touchdown dance, the scarf, the scarn last year. But he's a guy, when it comes to work, he's going to put the work in. And I think he works harder than what he used. One of the reasons why I feel like he works harder than what he used to work is because every time somebody says something to him, they always put the Mr. Irrelevant tag on him. It's like, oh, Mr. Irrelevant. So it's like, all right, let me prove these people wrong. I'm tired of getting called this. I'm tired of being labeled with this. So when I play, I'm gonna play like a first rounder. I'm gonna play like I was the first guy that got picked up in the draft instead of the last guy. So you could tell he plays with a chip on his shoulder. I'm excited to see him play. He's stepping up in that Jamison Crowder role from last year. So I think he's gonna hold it down in the slot. I mean, he plays with so much will, so much drive, and I mean, he'll get in there and block too. You don't see that a lot from slot guys. I mean, what's Trey, 6 foot?
He's not a big dude, but you can tell. He wants to get after it. Right. He's ready to get after it.
Right.
I got a few more things on Trey. So, like you said, he was he's Mr. Irrelevant and like maybe wanted to prove people wrong. But I think the biggest thing right now is that it just looks like he belongs out there.
Exactly.
It's like when you see him out there, you shouldn't even mention the Mr. Irrelevant label because the way everyone talks about him, the way that he's approaching the season, it's just he's another draft pick, that is coming into the NFL and is looking to make an impact. And you're right. He played 2.5 games last year. Mm-hmm. He got hurt on 2 different occasions, so he had to work back. He got hurt right in the beginning, and then
first game of the season,
the ankle injury, and then he re-aggravated it and went on IR. Mm-hmm. So he had to deal with that. And I mean, when he was on the field, I think he caught 9 of his 10 targets.
Exactly.
So, and that's what they really like, his ability to
productive.
His ability, his speed, toughness, and just the ability to get open and just catch whatever ball comes his way. So, and he understands that. He understands the hype, and he understands that he hasn't, in terms of NFL regular season games, he hasn't done much to validate that.
Right.
So I talked to him. This was early, like right after the Gruden comments, and he's like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a guy who's played 2.5 games in the NFL, and to me, that's not worth someone who should be starting in this league. So I'm going to take this offseason pretty seriously.
And he has.
And he was making plays all over the field. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is he looks like he's having so much fun too.
Exactly.
Yeah, he does all that work, and but then at the same time, he's a guy. He catches the ball. He's yelling. He's chirping. Like he just seems like he's having so much fun out there, which for some guys, especially late round picks, those guys
they're uptight.
They're uptight. Like, you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't want to make a mistake
because you could make a couple mistakes and then you could be off the team because there's guys that were drafted much higher than you were. But he just seems like he's so comfortable in his own skin and in his position right now, the slot, that it's going to be fascinating to see. Just even preseason, seeing what he does in preseason, game action, and then seeing how that translates to the season.
Right. Another fascination, you talk about preseason, and a guy we're interested to see who's going to be...
Good transition.
Who's going to be great in the preseason is a guy who was great in the preseason last year, Cam Sims. Cam, he's one of my favorite receivers in this group because he doesn't really care about, personality, what you think about him, talking and doing this and that. He does have a big personality in the locker room, but when he's on the field, his mindset is say, this is my job. Like we go, like our 9 to 5 is, come to work, do what we got to do. That's his 9 to 5.
Yep.
And, just with him being injured last year, that's prompted him to, want to be better, want to, make those plays. And I mean, it was a scrum earlier this year. You might have asked the question. I know somebody asked the question.
I don't know what was the question.
They said, "When have you been ready to get back? How long have you been ready to get back on the field?" He was like, "Since I got injured."
Yeah, I cannot take credit for that question, but that question was asked.
Yeah, and even just looking, I mean, if you look at his rap sheet, if you look at his what he did in college, it's easy to overlook a guy like that. But I mean, he played behind a Jerry Jeudy, who's going to be probably the #1 draft pick this upcoming year. Yeah. Played behind Calvin Ridley. I mean, Darius Stewart or O.J. Howard. Those guys are big time Alabama receivers, and I mean, he didn't have the stats, but you can tell when he's on the field, you'd be like, that guy must have went to Alabama.
Yep.
I mean, he just has that swag, just the way he plays. And I mean, it's a steal for us. I'm excited to see what he can do this year. I think if he stays healthy, he can make some big plays down the field. I mean, you see all the one-handed catches and the crazy catches that he makes across the middle. So I mean, he's very complete. He's a complete receiver.
Yeah. So one thing about his injury last year. So yeah, like you said, he had a great preseason, and Doug Williams actually, when asked about the wide receiver battle last training camp, said, yeah, this undrafted guy from Alabama really, threw a wrench into this whole wide receiver battle, because that's how good he was playing.
Yep.
And then first play, the opening kickoff of the season opener, he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And then he ends up landing on IR. And he actually told, so I actually interviewed him it was early March. It was the first interview I did when I got here.
Okay.
I sat down and talked with him for 10 minutes, and he said,
welcome to the NFL, bro.
Exactly. And so, and he was talking about his injury and watching the games on Sunday. And he said he would cry because he missed football that much.
Man.
And just going undrafted, getting to where he was entering the season, and then the season finally comes, and then you have to wait another year.
Yeah.
And you can tell just his voice is so genuine, and you can tell that he really missed it. And so to see him come out this year and during OTAs and everything, he's making a ton of plays. I mean, he's shown to have a good relationship with Case Keenum and Dwayne Haskins. I mean, he's caught a bunch of balls from Keenum. He caught a couple, one like 60-yard touchdown. There was another deep ball that he caught.
If you've been out to practice and you've seen if you've seen highlights of him on our YouTube channel or our website, you easily can spot out Cam Sims. Like you know who Cam Sims is. Like he's a playmaker, and that's what he's done.
Exactly. And the way it's like the way he makes the plays. It could just be a routine catch, but you're like, oh damn, okay,
he's special.
Like if you were just coming out to watch, it's like, wow, who is that guy?
Exactly.
Like, oh, when did you draft that guy? It's like, oh, we didn't even draft this guy.
It's like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Like just the physical tools.
Right. Another guy that stands out to me is Brian Quick. He's been he was on the practice squad a lot last year, on and off the team a little bit. So with Case Keenum, adding that addition to Case Keenum to this roster, of course, him and Case Keenum played for the Rams in 2016 together, and that's when he had his best year in the NFL.
Yep.
So I think that's what's going to help him this offseason, this training, because he has a chemistry with him already. So that's going to make the dynamic that much better. Brian Quick just looks a lot. He looks like you talked about Trey Quinn. Brian Quick just looks like he's having fun out there also. You can tell it's just second nature to him now. He's feeling comfortable in the offense. He knows what he's doing. He has a quarterback that he's thrown, that he's caught balls from before in a professional football game. So, I mean, we saw him working out with Dwayne Haskins, Josh Woodrum, and those guys. But at the same time, I like Brian Quick. I think he can make some key contributions, whether that's special teams or wide receiver.
Yeah, and I think also the other thing he has is another veteran presence. I mean, he drafted in 2012. He's been around the league, and especially because if he knows Keenum, that could help other guys that are hey, these are Case's tendencies.
Yeah, this is what he likes to do.
Because Case can tell you that himself, but to hear it from a wide receiver perspective, a guy who is play with him and been really productive with him, I think would go a long way.
Right.
If Case ultimately becomes the starter or in whatever capacity, Case ends up playing him. But I think he can just be, he's just a guy who can bring a lot of different components, not just what he can do as a wide receiver, but what he can do with in terms of leadership and in terms of his special teams ability. So,
guy that stands out to me that's already looking up to him for veteran leadership is Terry McLaurin.
Yeah,
we've talked about him a lot. I know you got some more stuff on him. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, so like we talked about, I don't want to sound too repetitive with the rookies because we talked about them the first episode and just they've pretty much dominated all the conversation.
Terry and Kelvin Harmon.
Exactly, but I mean, Terry's a guy that even Gruden was, when they drafted him, he's like, this is going to be a guy who's going to be a starter for us. They don't know when exactly it's going to be, but I mean, just from the looks of what he's done at OTAs and minicamp, it seems like sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
It's because he has the skill set, but he also has the drive and the character and all the intangibles to want to get better and to listen to the coaches. And he's going to learn a lot from Brian Quick and special teams too. I mean, McLaurin can step out in the field day one and be a special teams
He'll
contributor.
be one of the gunners for sure. It's
exactly.
Just the fact of, like you said, when that time comes, when will he get that starting position at receiver and or the gunner position with special teams?
And it's gonna be really interesting to see especially when all these guys have pads on and when I want to see them blocking on the outside. Outside runs.
And, that's what he specialized in.
Yeah, he loves it too. So just right now during OTAs and minicamp, we saw them one-on-one against cornerbacks, DB, safeties. We saw them running plays on air, but it's like the physical part of it. They haven't been hit over the middle or
haven't been pressed at the line of scrimmage.
Exactly.
I mean,
so
like
the physicality that comes with football, we haven't seen that yet from this group.
Right.
We've seen it among the individual guys at different points throughout their careers, but not together as a collective group. So, I mean, I think that's going to tell us a lot more.
Right.
So another rookie, I'll leave it to you for this one, Kelvin Harmon. Touch on him real quick.
NC State guy. I mean, we talked about it in episode 1. He's just a bully.
Yeah.
When the ball's in the air, he's going to go up and get it, and he basically says, it's my ball. It's either my ball or it's an incompletion. I mean, he's a physical specimen. One thing he's been working on is his speed. I mean, but his 40 speed compared to his game speed are completely different. Yeah. His 40 speed says he's a 4.5, 4.6, but game speed, you're not going to walk that guy down. And he just plays with this mindset and this tenacity that basically you're not going to win. I'm going to win 10 times out of 10. I'm not going to give you that one time out of 10. And you need a guy with that type of mindset. I mean, we talked about how he always bothers Ike Hilliard. Always he's
texting him all the time. That's right. He's probably texting him right now
as we speak.
He's like, Ike's getting ready for the weekend. He's like hanging out with, and Kelvin's like, hey, what do I do on this route? He's like, dude,
it's like, bro, it's July 5th.
Come on, it's the weekend,
right? But I mean, that's pretty much other than what we've already said about Kelvin Harmon in episode 1. I mean, that's pretty much all I have on him. Other than he's a bully, and he's going to find his way. With the football in his hand and, in the end zone eventually.
I actually think one more thing. I think NFL.com said that he has like an alpha dog mentality.
Yes.
And so he explained that just as you said, when the ball's in the air, I'm going to get it. And if I physically can't get it, I'm going to make sure it's not an interception.
Right.
So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So it'll be exciting. I mean, another guy that's going to make it interesting. Special teams wise and receiver wise, J.U. Chesson. He was on every single special team, group last year, other than field goal. And I think he was on field goal block, but I know punt return, kickoff return. He was on that, and he made some huge plays. I mean, he had a great career at Michigan. When you rewind back to how did he get here? I mean, he got drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs and then ended up with the Redskins. So he's shown on special teams that he can get the job done. He's dependable. He's reliable. We saw a little bit of him playing receiver last year. It wasn't that much, but at the same time, he showed flashes. It's just a matter of when the opportunity presents itself. And he's done a good job of staying on the bus by staying on special teams.
Exactly.
Yeah. You never know what can happen in this league. I mean, any Sunday, something can happen. A receiver might get tired, and the next play he subs in, and it's a go route, and he touchdown. Like that literally changed the entire landscape of your career with that one play. So he's a guy that, you know, his mindset is if I stay ready, I don't have to get ready. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think he's going to make it interesting this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Who else? Moving on. Who are you on? Darvin Kinsey?
Darvin Kinsey.
All right, let's start with him.
Yeah, he was on the practice squad a lot last year. He's a fast guy. He's just a speedster. I mean, he's not the biggest guy. He's a speedster, but I think one thing he has on his side is that he's been in it. He knows the offense. He's been in this offense for a while. He knows what's going on, and you can't teach that. I mean, compared to another guy who, you know, if we bring a guy off the streets tomorrow, Darvin's going to have that, you know, that mental, you know, he's going to have that over him, the mental capacity, the mental mindset, like just the mindset, you know, how the team operates. He's going to have that in his favor. So he's going to make it interesting also. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's special teams where he fits, where at on special teams. If somebody goes down or something happens, he can, you know, fill in that slot position. But pretty sure you know a little bit more also that you can add to this.
Yeah. I mean, so he's also had to fight like hell to get on this team, to be on the practice squad, to still be here right now. I mean, I think it was last year he went to, I think it was the Cleveland Browns training camp. And so that was I think it was rookie minicamp, sorry. So it was rookie minicamp, and it was a week before the Redskins. And so he thought he had a really good camp, and I think they did too, but it just logistically didn't work out, so he didn't make the team. And then he came to the Redskins the next week, tried out, and it's hard to do. I mean, so especially if you're going to rookie minicamp and you didn't get signed before rookie minicamp, you're trying out. You're playing for your football life. And not only was he able to get signed at the rookie minicamp, but then he sticks on. You know, he ends up being on the practice squad, but still, and you know, after a year, he's still here. So he's doing things that the Redskins like enough to
keep him around,
keep him on this roster, and they're expecting him to make an impact, or else he wouldn't be here. So I think just what he's gone through to get here, he has that mentality of what it takes to help the team in whatever way they ask.
Yeah, I think Darvin's attention to detail is so great. I mean, his route running, his preciseness in and out of his breaks. Just being a former receiver, I like that from a smaller guy. You know, because you're not going to be that guy that's getting deep posts. You're going to be that guy that's catching across the middle, catching screens, and trying to make a play. So his attention to detail is remarkable, and I think that's one of the reasons why these coaches love him.
Yeah. Moving on we got Robert Davis.
Yeah, we haven't really the ceiling. We don't know his ceiling yet. We saw what he did at Georgia Southern, where he was at. I think it was Georgia State. Yeah. And when he was at Georgia State, he broke almost every record, like school record. So coming out of college, it was a lot of potential for him. But getting hurt in training camp, he had that unfortunate injury. I think it was 2017, and he had that unfortunate injury. So since then, I mean, it was, you know, trying to figure out, all right, where does this guy fit? But, you know, I think when he gets back healthy, he can make plays. Just the fact of when is he going to come back? How healthy is he right now? I think from what I hear, he'll be ready for training camp. So he adds another dimension to this receiver group that's going to make it interesting during training camp.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, he's been putting his recovery time to good use because he's huge. Yeah. He is absolutely massive.
He's like 6'3",
but like he is built.
Yeah,
like you saw that Instagram, right? I was like, I need to get on that routine, so maybe I'll come back next summer,
next July 4th,
and look a tenth of what he is. It's insane. I mean, and just so it's exciting. You want to see him get back onto the field,
right?
And because in terms of a physical presence, he just seems like a guy that could be a bully. So. But we haven't seen him yet,
right?
And it remains to be seen when we will. But I mean, he's another guy in the group, and any of these guys can stand out. I mean, who thought that Cam Sims was going to stand out last year? I mean, it's a guy who he was undrafted and he was not productive at all in Alabama, and now a year later, look how we're talking about him.
Right.
So it's really any of these guys that maybe haven't shown as much or don't have the track record that could, you know, come August we could be talking about them.
Right, so. Exactly. And come August, we're going to be talking about 2 more guys. I guess we can just group them together, TJ Ramming and Steve Sims. Similar build, similar stats in college. Steve Sims had, I think, career of over 2,500 receiving yards at, I can't think of this, Kansas.
Yep,
and
Kansas.
TJ Ramming, he had over 3,000 receiving yards at Duke.
Yep.
So, I mean, he's played with, great quarterbacks, been in great systems. They both play big-time football. They're both speedsters. They both can, do everything you need them to do. They both remind me of like a Jamison Crowder, a small speedster guy that can make plays. Jamison Crowder was probably a little bit more built than those guys. But, I mean, these guys, they can flat out fly.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Steven Sims, I know Gruden mentioned him by name after rookie minicamp in terms of a guy who was out there making plays. And I mean, you saw during OTAs too. Maybe some guy made a catch and you weren't exactly sure who it's like, who was that guy? And it's like it was Steven Sims. So I think, like you said, they're 2 similar build type guys that can provide speed, quickness, the ability to get open.
Right.
How they fit into the Redskins system, we don't know exactly know yet. But I mean, so it remains to be seen. Yeah. But they're on the team for a reason.
Exactly.
And like you said, it's an interesting group that it's going to be one of the more intriguing developments to see who becomes that go-to guy or maybe go-to guys, and if they can all stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because that might be one of the biggest things.
My biggest takeaway from this receiver group is I think if I already know the quarterback situation will be set in stone. We're going to have a great offense. We saw what the offense could have done last year. I mean, we're throwing the ball, running the ball. So there are the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
I think this receiver group will go as far as Paul Richardson allows them to go. He provides such a great dynamic that a lot of these receivers don't have. I mean, he can play slot and outside, and he can run by you. He's quick. He's fast. So I think teams will start, keying in on him. Yep. And once they start keying in on him, it just opens, more opportunities for other receivers. Your Trey Quinns, your Josh Doxsons, your Terry McLaurin's. I know I'm probably missing a lot of guys, but it opens the room for those guys to be great, your Cam Sims to make plays. And I think Paul Richardson, his veteran leadership, I mean, he's probably got the most experience. Yeah. He's probably had the best NFL career to date in this position group. So I feel like, just his leadership, his playmaking ability will allow these other guys to be successful.
Yeah, actually, just one more point on the wide receivers. I totally agree with you. I think really the biggest thing is, what Paul Richardson can bring, and then what Trey Quinn can bring in the slot. Because in Richardson, you have a guy that if you can have a big play or two, and instead of a 10-play drive where you're run the ball AP and Geis, maybe getting a couple underneath routes.
Right.
You got a touchdown.
Exactly.
Like boom, 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 6 points, and then you can, keep go on your way. Because it's a lot harder to manufacture drives, especially as you get closer to the end zone. So having a guy that can just break out a 60, 70-yard reception for a touchdown is huge. And then the other thing with Trey Quinn is that everyone says, his ability to get open in his hands, so he's going to be a huge guy on third downs.
Yep.
And so if you're running the ball first down, second down, say you have third and manageable, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 4, his ability to get open and make plays on those third downs and move the chains is going to be huge, because he's going to be that guy that's going to be looked to. Quarterbacks are going to be looking at him, okay, hey, you're going to run this route to the chains, and if you're open by a little bit, we're going to throw you the ball.
Right.
You have to be able to
make a play.
Sit down in zones. Exactly. Just make a play, move the sticks. So I think those guys in unison are just going to open everything up in terms of the intermediate routes for all the other guys to make catch and run plays.
Right. And I think that's pretty much all we have on the wide receivers.
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Going to the next and last position group from this breakdown, the rundown, position by position breakdown. Tight ends, let's start with Vernon Davis. I'll let you start it off. We all know what he can do, but you got a few stories on him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so just Vernon Davis is a guy that, he's a veteran. We've seen him produce. Also, he's a University of Maryland graduate. Roll Terps. So just want to get that out there.
Roll Terps.
But so he's a veteran guy. You've seen him be one of the best tight ends in the league, especially when he was in San Francisco. And even here, you can see that he's getting a little older, and that's just he's been in the league for a while, but you can still see that the speed is special, especially for tight ends. And there was one period during OTAs where he just caught like 3 or 4 straight balls. It might have even been in the red zone. It was just like Vernon Davis, Vernon Davis out route touchdown. And it's like he has a unique role in this offense in that he has the speed to get open and he can pose a vertical threat, down the seam. So he's a guy that, if him and Jordan Reed, if they're both producing, that's special.
Offense.
That's special. Yeah. So, I mean, you have anything on Vernon?
Vernon, I think what a lot of people would say right now is just the consistency. Yeah. I think when Vernon is consistent, he's still one of the top tight ends in the NFL. And just speaking of consistency, just those 2 big drops last year. I know one of them came against the Packers, and I can't think of the second game. But those were granted, we still won that game. Yeah. But those were big plays that you're like, man, like Vernon, like come on, make that play.
You got to make that, yeah.
But then, I mean, he shows you in other games, it's like, you know what, like he can still do this. I mean, the Carolina Panthers game, that catch, the Dallas Cowboys game, I'm like, all right, like Vernon, he can still play. And I forgot who I was talking to, but it was a player, and they're basically saying, you don't talk age when you talk about Vernon Davis and Adrian Peterson. Yeah. So those two guys are just freaks. Yeah. Like Vernon Davis ran a 4.3 coming out of college, and I'm pretty sure he probably still runs like a 4.4, 4.5 today. And I think he's 35 years old.
He looks pretty damn fast in the field.
Exactly. So I mean, those are 2 guys where you can't let age be the defining factor of who they are, because those guys, they're just physical specimens. Even in the weight room, the weight Vernon puts up in the weight room at his age. I mean, with his career, it's like this dude probably can still play 3 or 4 more years. So I think that's the biggest thing for him, just staying consistent and just being that guy, because he showed he can be that guy. He still can be that guy. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. He can sit in and block. He can run down. I mean, catch balls downfield. I mean, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be an interesting year. But at the same time, this group is going to be it's going to be led by Vernon Davis and Jordan Reed. And Jordan Reed, who's our next guy, last year he showed a lot of, flashes of what he could be. He's been, hampered with unfortunate injuries, but when he's in the game, he makes plays. A game that stands out to me is when he had the one-handed catch at New Orleans last year on Monday Night Football. And it's like a 3rd down catch. And it was like, man, like this guy is good. Oh, yeah. Like he's good. Like he can make, he probably has the best hands on the team. It's just the fact of, him just being out there and, just being able to, just being in those opportunities where he can make a play.
Yeah. I think that it's even like more than flashes of what he can do. I mean, when he's on the field, I feel like, I don't know exactly in terms of like per game basis or production.
PFF.
Well, yeah, when he's on the field, he's been one of the better tight ends in the league. Yeah. Like that's well documented. But the problem is that gets overshadowed by it's seemingly every year there's another injury and he can't stay healthy. But I think he played 12 games last year?
13 games last year.
I mean, 13 games out of Jordan Reed from a guy who has been injury prone. Yeah. That's a pretty good year. Yeah. And he produced too. He had a good year. Yeah. And so I just think, and now too, I mean, I know he hasn't been practicing yet.
Yeah, but he's been running and everything, but it's been on the side. And, he's been doing stuff with the trainers. I mean, but to me, he looks good. Yeah. I think if there was a game today, he would
I was going to say, I think it's more precautionary, just knowing his injury history and also knowing what he can do when he's on the field. They know that they can be cautious with him, move him along slow. Yeah. Especially because then, as long as he's good by training camp, and that's going to be
when it matters.
So keeping him on the field, because him and Vernon together is huge. If you miss one of them, that's a big hit. Just what they can do, like they provide different skill sets.
They complement each other.
Exactly. That's the word I was looking for, and it just escaped me. But
I think another person that can complement both of them is Jeremy Sprinkle. Jeremy Sprinkle,
the up and comer.
He's one of those guys when he was brought in, a lot of people said, oh, he's just a blocker. He's just a big guy, physical presence from Arkansas. Caught a few balls there, but last year I think he really showed that, he can be a threat in the pass game also. the touchdown against the Jaguars last year.
Yeah.
I think it was the only touchdown we had. But, I mean, we won that game. But, I mean, just seeing his determination, his drive, just you just saw something in Jeremy Sprinkle that, as a fan, nobody saw until that game last year. So that he left a lasting impression in, a lot of fans' minds, I'm pretty sure in the coaches' minds. And, I mean, just going into this past OTAs and minicamp, he made some big plays this year.
He did, yeah.
And out of any of the tight ends, I feel like he uses his body the best. He's a big frame, but I think what separates him is like he knows how to use his body.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows how tall he is. He knows his range. And as a tight end, that's what you need. I mean, as a quarterback, if I throw it up anywhere that he can reach or catch the ball, he's coming down with it.
Yeah.
Because he's always going to be matched up against a smaller linebacker or a smaller safety or a smaller cornerback. So you just know, all right, this guy is going to make a play on the ball.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point because now thinking of that, I've seen during OTAs and stuff, because with Jordan Reed not practicing and then Vernon Davis, I don't think did he only come to the
Vernon?
Yeah.
Vernon's been here the entire from phase 1 of the workouts to
So it's pretty much been him and Vernon taking a lot of the reps at the tight end. And just his ability, especially over the middle, his ability to maneuver his body and just like you said, anywhere they throw it, he's going to be able to get it somehow. And it looks different because it's like, oh, the ball's over here, he's got it. Ball's over here, he's got it. Like, and then it's another guy where
it makes it look so routine, right?
Yeah, and it's another guy. It's like, oh, who's this guy again? It's like, Jeremy Sprinkle, third-year guy. He's looking to take that next step, and I think having those reps during OTAs and minicamp, in Jordan Reed's absence, I think is only going to help him. And then being able to learn from, because if you're a young tight end, learning from Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis, it's hard to get much better than that. And so being able to take stuff from both of them and just how they perform in the system, I think is going to be huge for him.
Right.
So.
And next up, I know the next two guys are University of Pitt Panthers, former alumni from those schools, Matt Flanagan and J.P. Holtz. They were both on the practice squad. I know Matt got called up. He made the active roster towards the end of the year, so he's got some in-game experience. Those guys have been used primarily for the run game. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like both of these guys can be a threat eventually in the pass game. I see them after practice working with Vernon and your Jordan Reeds. And they want to get better also. I mean, they want to make this as competitive as possible. I mean, that's what they're here to do. And I know just from last year to this past training camp, not training camp, last OTAs, like they made some huge, like big steps, going forward. I mean, they've proved that, hey, I want to be in the box. I mean, goal line. I can knock somebody out. But at the same time, like I can also, line up at tight end and run a route and get you quality game, a quality possession. Keep the drive going. And those guys, I'm pretty sure that's what they're working on this offseason to improve their game, but at the same time expand what they can do instead of just being the blocking tight end. Yeah, like they want to be an all around tight end.
And I think there's a need for that. There's a need for the all-around tight end because I feel like, at least in the past maybe, and Gruden's admitted this, that, in terms of the formation kind of gives away what you're doing. So, if you have, say you have Flanagan or Holtz in there, you're going to think it's more going to be a run play. Then if you have Jordan Reed in there, it might be a pass play.
Right.
So if those are guys that you already know they can block, and they don't have to be a Vernon Davis or Jordan Reed because they're not going to. But
they don't need a 60-yard touchdown.
But if they can just get open for like a few plays over the middle, then that just helps your offense so much because now they're a threat. Now okay, Matt Flanagan's in a tight end, but he's made X amount of catches this year. He's a part of the passing offense now, and just that little sense that he can be a passing threat. Yeah. Is going to help.
Pressure on the defense.
Push more pressure on the defense. Yeah, helps out the running game, helps out the quarterback. So I think both of those guys are the potential to develop as pass catchers. Right. Could help the offense.
For sure. And lastly, Donald Parham. We signed him recently. Well, it was pretty late in the offseason workout training. I'm trying to think of the
OTAs.
Yeah, OTA period. But he's 6'8", 260.
6'8".
Yeah, 6'8", 260, and he's shown that he can make plays. So I think he's going to make this position group interesting this offseason. Like I honestly feel like this entire wide receiver, this entire offensive side of the ball position group, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, O-line, D-line we're talking about next week. But these four groups can be very competitive come July 25th.
Yeah. One more thing on Donald.
Uh-oh.
Actually, I got a couple things on Donald. So you said 6'8", and he went to Stetson. So we were actually watching his college highlights, and it just looked like one of the basketball games where it's like there's one kid who had the growth spurt before anyone else, and he's just catching balls over the middle, and it's like the guys are up to here on him.
Crazy.
And it's nuts, and to see, and then you realize it's a college level. So for one, that I think he's the tallest guy on the team. He's got to be one of the tallest guys in the NFL.
I can't think of any NFL. It's probably some 6'8" linemen out there. I know.
One of the tallest.
Tight ends.
I think he's the tallest on the team though.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that.
But anyway, so he tried out. He was a tryout guy, and he caught a touchdown pass from Haskins during one of the OTA days. And everyone's like, "Wait, who is that?" It's like, "Oh," because he didn't have the name across the helmet. It's like, "Oh, that's Donald I don't know.
Parham.
Is it Parham?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to pronounce it. But anyway, hours later, the team announces that he gets signed. So it's like that's a hell of a day.
Exactly.
You try out, you catch a touchdown pass from Dwayne Haskins. Possible, future of the franchise, and then hours later you're signed. So, I mean,
it's a good day for him.
How that's gonna manifest once training camp starts, because there's a lot of tight ends. I mean, we don't know, but it's just another guy that he brings something that no one else in the group has. No one has the size that he has. So
all these guys bring something different to the table.
Exactly.
Which makes it a fun, interesting group.
Exactly. So
any final thoughts on the tight ends? We gave our final thoughts on the wide receivers.
Not really. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just seeing if Jordan Reed can stay healthy. And because if he can stay healthy, that just sets the tone for the rest of the receivers. Because then Vernon Davis isn't asked to do as much because Vernon Davis in a complementary role, that's a really good secondary tight end.
Right.
So it's just, I think it's a matter of how healthy Jordan Reed can stay, and because we know he's going to be productive, and then he's going to set the tone for the rest of this group. I mean,
for sure.
What do you think?
I totally agree. I feel like all these guys can make big plays. It starts with Jordan Reed, Vernon Davis. Those are the guys who played the most. So they're going to, get most of the attention. But it's all about, how can these guys – you're only as good as your backups. So how are these guys going to push them? How can they push the guys behind them? So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see it. I think that's all the time that we have now. I'm most excited about the trenches next week.
Oh, yeah?
Offensive line, defensive line. Okay. You don't hear about those guys much.
I know. I mean, and we've been hearing a lot about the defensive line.
Yeah,
we've been hearing a ton about the defensive line, and for good reason.
Right.
But the O line especially. So we'll have to get into that. But
thanks for joining me after your 4th of July, man.
Of course, I know it was so exciting. I don't know how I made it here.
Nice, man. Well, that's all we have.
Yeah.
This is episode 4 of The Rundown.